invite you while you rest there just to sink into your seat. Let the body soften. Eyes open, eyes closed, it doesn't matter. Just sinking your attention into the immediacy of the moment, the feel of breath, feel of weight. Letting felt attention move through the field of the body. Noticing all the felt flavors of being here. And as felt attention moves through the body, just inviting each cell, each muscle, each limb to soften and sink and give itself to ground. There is an invitation implicit when we sit together or sit alone. There's an invitation to turn away from the external, the storyline of the life, into a kind of simplicity of being. And that's easier said sometimes than affected. But to notice in the body, because the creature of the body holds conditioning, to notice any place in the body that is bracing, that is lifted out of a sinking into being, a sinking into ground, a sinking into being here. It's as though every cell could be invited into its own willingness to be here, to soften out of protection, to soften out of doing, to soften out of anticipating the next moment, into a deep softening and schmoozing with just right here. Ground and breath, the simplicity of just being. And when we pull our attention away from its fascination with thought, and start to let it notice the simplicity of the moment, it becomes more evident that we are this aware beingness. And this aware beingness is still, deep, going nowhere, the backdrop, the core of us, the silent fountain of our being. And so in inviting the body soft, in inviting attention off of the pretend world of the everyday mind, we invite a direct meeting with our experience of this noticing and noticed, awareness and its objects, the mother, father, and his children. And so letting the body soften bit by bit, dissolving, opening. If your experience is overwhelming when you put attention on felt experience, please do put attention on whatever soothes you, in case your body carries trauma. Letting yourself have a few deep breaths. So when we stop like this, when we sink into being like this, there is the possibility of exploring what I call our verticality, timelessness, just here-ness. A sense of presence, a sense of going nowhere. A sense of the ground of being that is the foundation of what you are. A place to rest your bones, a place to die. And this is the essential battle, the frightened creature of the body and its coping strategies. Sure, softening and opening and sinking into here, undefended, open, going nowhere. Will A result in its death, and B, be very unwise, be anti-survival. And so all of the movements of the creature energy in your body that send you out of schmoozing in the moment into strategies, whether they're strategies to survive well or strategies of awakening. That's the movement of a terrified creature. And we can call it fancy names like ego, identity, etc., etc. It's just our frightened creature's way of adapting, using all of our capacities to give itself some kind of an illusion of security. And so this is the famous wrestling your angel. It appears throughout traditions as a kind of a battle. The Sufis call it the nafs, the creature, the tendencies. And so here we woo it. We sing to it from the heart of being. There, creature. All is well. Blow thought. Blow ideas. There's breath. There's ground. There's being. There is this great depth of us at peace already. And we can rest the body, the mind, the psyche into that. And of course, as the creature is invited here, it may find that soothing. It may find that terrifying. It may throw up into consciousness its arguments, its struggles, its confusions, the things we call problems, all the places where our complex energy management system, both conscious and unconscious, has not been permeated with the embrace of the holy. And so letting your attention just notice the places in the body that are soft, that are open, that feel spacious, the life energy as it hums, and the places in the body that are clenching or busy or in pain or restless. And let your attention just notice the feel of that, both the feel, the perception of a kind of a surrendered spaciousness, and then the feel of the fight. It manifests very physically. No, no, says the creature, no, I don't want to be here. This is not a good place. It hurts. It's confusing. And just very tenderly softening all around any place it's gripping. Holding it like you would a frightened baby in the arms of tender felt noticing. Letting the ground carry it as it is. I remember when I was very desperate to find out what was real because the level of suffering that I was experiencing. And I, up until that point, had relied on my mind. My mind was myself. It was all one piece. It was a strategy for finding my way in the world, for understanding things, for orienting. And in the process of deconstruction, it was really clear in a very visceral way that the complexity of the coping mind was actually not my friend. And that much of the craziness was actually coming from being completely divorced, of resting here with a direct experience of life, instead being cut off from that and living out of the head, living from a kind of a substitute for direct experience called history and thought. So every time that we let our attention slip down out of its fascination with our strategies and our thinking, the attempt to understand, the attempt to get somewhere, every time we let that gem of our awareness, that our treasure, come off of that delusional factory, delusion factory, churning out layer upon layer upon layer of complexity based on false assumptions. Every time we take it off of there and sink it down into our direct experience of being, whatever aspect of being that is, breath, ground, presence, awareness. We take a small bit of our allegiance to the false and return it to the true. We weaken the muscle, we weaken the machine, we take a little bit of its fuel away. And so In my experience, awakening is simply the allegiance. Our allegiance moves, our faith moves, our interest moves away from the content of thought and the futurizing and the historicizing down into direct contact with here. There is nothing here that is not of the holy. Sinking attention into felt, abiding, feeling the wedding of presence and sensation that you have a front row seat to. Abiding there, feeling there, resting there, floating. No life, no story, no getting anywhere, no hope. Just this, here, like this. Both the stillness of the heart, of your being, and the vibration of life, the vibration of sound, the vibration of feel. The ground. And many of us who have been forced to the ground by life circumstances, forced because of the level of suffering that the complexity brought on us, forced down into simplicity, into breath, into noticing just our simple being. Those of us who have died there, having the backbone of that strategizer being broken, that separate sense of will being broken. From that ground of being, it's almost like if it were portrayed with an image, it would almost be like the body dissolves into the earth. It is literally like the process of dying for the sense of separateness to sink its body down and dissolve into the earth. So I'm talking to you from the dirt. The dirt is talking, the earth is talking, and I'm using the earth as the metaphor for the ground of being. Simplicity, breath, here, going nowhere, raw being. So tricky to point to. How do you speak about nothing? Yet it's a very robust nothing. We speak from below strategy, below thought, pointing to death, which is a total aspect of life itself. To have everything false die, to die into life itself, the organic, alive movement of life as it moves from this great depth of stillness. That's you. The great depth of stillness and the organic movement of life. Reflecting the beauty of this great deep stillness in all of its creations. Bubbling out planets, bubbling out mountains, bubbling out music, bubbling out true words to be only that. Our heart is so tired of the false. It so longs to be completely taken over by what we love the most. To live from there. So to me, every struggle, every confusion, it can be humiliating to come to meetings because what are we doing? If we're really after it, we're not necessarily crowing about what we've realized. We're going for the place where we're confused and offering it up to be inquired into, to be pierced by what's real. And so this process is inherently humiliating / humbling. But every struggle and every confusion has the seed of its resolution in it, right down at the very core of the tiny movement away. At the bottom of every struggle, of every mental suffering, is a tiny movement away. And once we find that, not just mentally, but once our awareness, our felt awareness gets the address, gets the feel for what fleeing is in its essence, we can start to cut it off at the root. We can start to trace our struggles down to that essential place where instead of turning toward, we turn away.